In 1943, a riveter's wife named Edith Lundgren in Hartford, Connecticut, fed a family of 6 on $14 a week. Her husband worked the graveyard shift at Pratt and Whitney, building aircraft engines for the war. Edith never worked outside the home. She had a wooden ration book, a cast-iron stove, a victory garden in the side yard, and a notebook her mother had handed her in 1929. Inside that notebook were rules. By 1948, Edith had paid off her house. She had 3 war bonds maturing. She had not borrowed $1 in 15 years. They managed money differently, not with banks, but with rules, sharpened by a war that taught a whole country how to live on less. Those habits kept families fed when butter, gasoline, and meat were rationed. We abandoned every one of them the moment the soldiers came home and the supermarkets opened. These were not tricks. They were a discipline, drilled into every kitchen in America by a government that needed citizens who could stretch. Number 18 cost nothing and saved the average household over $90 a year, more than a month's groceries. Number 9 was printed on federal posters and taught in elementary school home economics until 1962. And number 2, the rule that built more middle-class American homes than any government program in history, was a single sentence written on the inside of a savings bond. These 25 habits were not about being cheap. They were about turning a wartime paycheck into a post-war life. Hit subscribe. Let us count down the 25 forgotten ways 1940s families stretched $1 into 10. Number 25, the drippings jar. Every kitchen in the 1940s kept a tin can on the back of the stove. Every strip of bacon, every pork chop, every roast left behind a tablespoon of fat. That fat went into the can. The can fried eggs on Tuesday, greased the bread pan on Wednesday, and flavored the green beans on Thursday. Butter was rationed at 4 ounces per person per week. The drippings can was unrationed. A 1944 USDA bulletin estimated the average household saved $26 a year on cooking fat alone. The can was the budget made visible. Number 24. Mending night. Every Sunday after dinner, the women in the household sat in one room with a basket between them. Torn shirts, worn socks, loose buttons, frayed cuffs. 2 hours of mending replaced roughly $48 worth of new clothes a year. That was 3 weeks of grocery money. The federal Make Do and Mend campaign printed posters in every dry goods store in America. Sunday night was not a chore, it was an institution. Number 23, the single bar of soap, 1 bar for everything. A defense plant worker's wife in Akron bought 1 bar of laundry soap a month for 9 cents. She shaved curls off it with a paring knife into a tin can of hot water. That solution washed dishes, scrubbed floors, hand-washed delicates, and pre-treated stains. The same bar lasted 30 days. For a woman whose husband worked 12-hour shifts on aircraft assembly, the time saved by not running to the store mattered more than the money. The minutes were the second savings. Her neighbor bought 4 products and spent 38 cents. The annual difference was $3.48, enough for 2 pairs of children's shoes. Number 22. The coffee stretched with chicory. Rationed coffee in 1943 was 1 pound per adult every 5 weeks. Edith stretched hers by mixing in roasted ground chicory root from her garden. 2 parts coffee and 1 part chicory. The brew tasted darker, almost smoky. Her family did not run out of coffee once during the war. Her sister, who refused to mix, ran out by the 3rd week of every month and bought black market coffee at twice the price. The garden was the second pantry. By 1944, 20 million American households grew victory gardens, and those gardens produced 40% of the country's vegetables. Edith's 12 by 14-foot patch produced tomatoes, beans, carrots, lettuce, cabbage, and onions from May to October. Seeds cost 80 cents. That yield replaced $63 in groceries. The dirt in the side yard was paying war wages. Number 20. The rendered soap fat. After the drippings can was full, the surplus went into a separate crock kept under the sink. Combined with lye and rainwater every spring, it became 36 bars of homemade soap. Store soap cost 6 cents a bar. Homemade cost 2 cents. The annual savings ran $1.44, a week's worth of milk for a family of 6. The fat that was too rancid to cook with was clean enough to wash with. Nothing was waste until it was buried. Number 19. The sharpened pencil. A school teacher in Cleveland kept every pencil her 3 children brought home from school until it was less than 2 inches long. A small wooden pencil extender sold at 5 and dime stores for 3 cents. Let the children write the pencil down to a half-inch nub. Her children grew up believing a pencil was finished when the wood was gone, not when the eraser wore out. They carried that belief into careers and into their own children's homes. Across 4 children and 12 school years, the saved pencils ran $11. The lesson was the savings. Number 18. The newspaper insulation. A coal miner's wife in West Virginia layered week-old newspapers between the bed sheets and the wool blankets every November. Newspaper trapped body heat the same way attic insulation did. The layered bed allowed the family to keep the coal stove banked lower overnight. Coal cost $4.80 a ton. Burning 1 ton less per winter saved $4.80. Across the war years, $19.20 bought a new pair of work boots. The newspaper was already paid for. The warmth was extra. Number 17. The pressure cooker. A 1944 pressure cooker cost $14. It paid for itself in 9 months. Tougher cuts of meat were a fraction of the cost of steaks and chops. The pressure cooker turned them tender in 40 minutes. A pound of chuck cost 23 cents. A pound of round steak cost 41 cents. The savings ran $19 a year. The pressure cooker converted patience into protein. Pattern break. Here is what nobody tells you about the 1940s. The American diet was healthier under wartime rationing than before the war. A 1946 USDA study found that the average American consumed more vegetables, more whole grains, more legumes, and less sugar in 1944 than in 1939. Cardiovascular disease rates dropped. Childhood obesity, already rising in the 1930s, fell sharply. The reason was not patriotism. Families were forced to cook from scratch with what was in front of them. When the war ended and the supermarkets reopened, that knowledge began to disappear within a single generation. We did not get richer, we got reachable. Number 16. The hand-me-down network. Edith was the third of 4 sisters. Every dress, every coat, every pair of shoes that came into her oldest niece's house traveled down through 6 children across 2 households before being cut up for quilt scraps. A wool coat, purchased in 1939, was still warming a child in 1949. Across that decade, the network saved both families an estimated $340. The coat was not a possession. The coat was a relay. Number 15. The reused tinfoil. Aluminum was rationed for aircraft production. Every household saved tinfoil from gum wrappers, cigarette packs, and the rare prepared food. Smoothed flat, balled up, and saved in a drawer. The foil was reused for wrapping leftovers and lining baking pans. For a mother whose son was flying a B-17 over Germany, the foil in the drawer was not just savings. It was the same metal her boy was depending on, multiplied across millions of kitchens. The drawer of saved foil meant Edith never bought a single roll between 1942 and 1947. The savings ran $1.62. The drawer was a metal account. A factory wife in Detroit dipped her tea bag in the morning cup, then placed it on a saucer in the icebox until the afternoon. The second cup was lighter, but still tea. Her family of 5 drank tea twice a day for half the cost. The afternoon cup was when she sat down for the only 15 minutes of stillness she got all day. The savings paid for the tea. The pause was free. Annual savings were $4.94. The second cup was the principal. Number 13, the soup stock pot. A pot lived on the back of the stove from October through March. Every chicken bone, every onion skin, every carrot top went into it. Water was added daily. The pot simmered when the stove was already lit, so no extra fuel. By Friday, the pot held 2 gallons of stock. That stock became soup, sauce, gravy, and cooking liquid for rice and beans. Commercial bouillon cubes cost 14 cents a box. The stove was working overtime, but Edith was not paying for the second shift. Number 12, the bartered eggs. A bookkeeper's wife in Buffalo kept 4 hens in a backyard coop. The hens laid more eggs than her family could use. She traded the surplus with neighbors. Eggs for sewing repairs, eggs for hand-me-down shoes, eggs for a Saturday haircut. No money changed hands. By 1944, the hens had reduced her family's cash spending by $58 a year. The chicken coop was a small bank that paid in protein. Number 11, the bone button. When a shirt collar wore out, the buttons were cut off and saved in a glass jar on a kitchen shelf. When a new shirt was sewn, the buttons came from the jar. For Edith, the jar held buttons from her father's funeral suit, her wedding dress, and her oldest son's first communion shirt. Every button had a history. Every history was sewn back into the next garment. Edith did not buy new buttons between 1941 and 1953. The savings ran $9.60 across the decade. The jar was a record of every garment the family had ever worn out. Number 10, the egg carton reused. The pulp paper egg carton was returned to the egg seller every week and refilled. The carton was reused 12 to 15 times before it fell apart. The egg seller knew every family on the route by the wear patterns on their cartons. Returning a carton was a handshake. Forgetting was a small embarrassment. The egg seller charged a penny less when the carton was returned. Across the war, $2.08. Today, the egg carton is thrown away after one use. In 1943, the carton was a deposit. Pattern break. A man in Hartford named Walter Lundgren died in 2009 at age 91. He had been Edith's husband. He had worked at Pratt and Whitney for 38 years. When his children opened the safe deposit box, they found something none of them expected. He owned the Hartford house outright. He owned a small cottage in Maine. He had $214,000 in war bonds and savings. His college-educated grandchildren, earning 4 times what he had earned, were carrying student loans, car loans, and mortgages that consumed 38% of their income. They had moved beyond his world. They had lost his arithmetic. Number 9, the cold rinse. Every load of laundry in 1943 was washed in hot water and rinsed in cold. Hot water cost fuel. Cold water was free. For a woman doing laundry by hand on a Monday morning, the cold rinse was also a small mercy on her hands, already raw from lye soap and a washboard. The savings were the official reason. The relief was the unspoken one. Federal Home Economics Bulletins, printed in 1944, estimated the cold rinse saved the average household $14 a year. 2 savings from 1 habit. The federal government taught it. America forgot it. The crusty heel of every loaf, the slice that went stale, the half-piece left on a child's plate, none of it was thrown away. Saved in a paper bag in the bread box, a week's worth of ends became Sunday's bread pudding. For Edith's children, Sunday pudding was the highlight of the week, sweet, warm, served with preserved peaches. They did not know it was made from scraps. They thought it was a treat. It was both. A quart of milk, 2 eggs, raisins, and the saved bread fed 6 people for 11 cents. A bakery cake cost 38 cents. The end of the loaf was the start of the meal. Number 7. The borrowed tool. Every block in America during the 1940s had an unofficial tool ledger. The Franklins had the ladder, the Kowalskis had the long pipe wrench, the Garcias had the hand drill. Nobody bought what the neighbor already owned. A new ladder cost $4.20. A pipe wrench cost $1.80. Across a working family's lifetime, borrowed tools saved an average of $190. The neighborhood was a hardware store with no register. Number 6. The patched inner tube. Rubber was rationed more strictly than gasoline. New tires were almost impossible to buy without a war ration certificate. Edith's husband patched every flat himself with a 19-cent kit from the Western Auto Store. A single tire, patched 8 or 9 times, stayed on the family Studebaker for the entire war. The patch kit saved the family over $40 across 4 years. The tube did not have to be new to do its job. Number 5. The layaway plan. Department stores in 1943 let families reserve an item for a 10% deposit and pay it off in weekly installments. No interest, no credit check, no fees. Edith bought her sewing machine on layaway across 9 months, $1.20 a week. By the time she walked out of the store with it, she had paid for it in full. Layaway was the working family's financing. The interest rate was 0. The discipline was the cost. Number 4. The library card. Edith's 3 children read 187 books between 1943 and 1949 without buying a single one. The Hartford Public Library card cost nothing. A new hardcover book cost $2.50, a full day's wages for an unskilled laborer. The library card replaced an estimated $467 in book purchases. The card was free, and the children paid attention. Number 3. The war bond deduction. Pratt and Whitney took $4.50 out of Walter's paycheck every 2 weeks for a $25 war bond. The bond cost $18.75 and matured at $25 in 10 years. The deduction was automatic. Walter never saw the money. He never had a chance to spend it. By 1945, he held bonds with a face value of $675. The federal government had figured out something American banks would not catch up to for 40 years. Money you never see is money you never spend. The deduction was the rule. The bond was the receipt. Number 2. Pay yourself first, before the rent, before the groceries, before the electric bill. The very first money out of the paycheck went into the savings tin, the war bond, or the credit union. It did not matter if it was 50 cents. It mattered that it happened first. Walter and Edith put aside something every payday for 38 years without exception. The phrase, "pay yourself first," was printed on war bond posters in 1942. It was not financial advice. It was a national instruction. The country won a war on that sentence. The household won a life on it. Number 1. Spend less than you earn. That is the whole rule. No drippings can, no victory garden, no tin behind the wall, no system at all. What carried families through was the unglamorous, unfashionable, unbreakable discipline of spending less than you earn, every week, every month, for decades, until the gap between what was earned and what was spent became the foundation of everything that followed. Edith was not running 24 systems at once. She practiced one with such fierce consistency that 24 others arranged themselves around it. She spent less than Walter earned, every week of every year. The drippings can was simply the proof. None of these habits required a degree, an advisor, or a bank. They required attention. The willingness to look at money honestly, without shame and without fantasy. The generation that lived through the 1940s understood something modern America has spent 70 years trying to unlearn. That comfort is not the same as security. That convenience is not the same as freedom. That the ability to buy anything you want is worthless if you have not first built the ability to say no. Edith Lundgren did not look prosperous. She wore the same wool coat for 16 winters, but she was prosperous in the only way that ever counted. She could not be reached by hunger, by eviction, by the slow dread that settles into a family when next month is already lost. These were not the habits of poor people. These were the habits of people who refused to be poor again. Walter and Edith had grown up in the Depression. They were not going to let an unwatched dollar take it back. The drippings can is gone. The victory garden is a parking lot. The math has not changed. What you keep still matters more than what you earn. Unreachable.